crimson warning lights bathed the bridge of the UES Defiant in an ominous glow as Captain Varric Thorne stared at the tactical display. 3,000 enemy vessels surrounded their small human fleet of 47 ships. Odds that would make even the most optimistic strategist weep. The Veltar hegemony had brought their entire 8th battle fleet to crush humanity's first venture into the outer spiral, and by all conventional wisdom, they had already won. "Status report," Thorne commanded, his weathered face betraying no emotion despite the impossible situation. Lieutenant Commander Ashara Voss, his tactical officer, turned from her console with grim determination. Enemy fleet composition: 200 dreadnoughts, 800 battle cruisers, and 2,000 escort vessels. They formed a perfect spherical formation around Usno escape vectors. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Kane Duluth, "we're receiving a transmission from the Veltar flagship." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Fleet Admiral Kixtera, her Catonus exoskeleton gleaming under the bridge lights. The insectoid alien's compound eyes fixed on Thorne with predatory satisfaction. "Human Captain," her voice resonated through the universal translator, "you have ventured far from your primitive world. Your species shows promise, but your expansion ends here. Surrender now, and your crews will be granted the mercy of slavery rather than death." Thorne stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "Admiral Kixar, I appreciate your generous offer. However, I'm afraid I must decline." The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You jest, surely. You're 47 vessels against our 3,000. Even your species' renowned stubbornness cannot overcome such mathematics." "Mathematics," Thorne mused, a slight smile playing at his lips. "An interesting choice of words. Tell me, Admiral, are you familiar with human history?" "I know enough. Your species fought countless wars among yourselves before discovering faster-than-light travel. Crude, inefficient conflicts that somehow forged you into formidable warriors. True, but we learned something else from those wars, something that might surprise you." Thorne's eyes gleamed with an intensity that made even the hardened bridge crew lean forward. "We learned that the greatest victories often come not from having the largest army, but from understanding what your enemy values most." Kixtera, head tilted, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "And what do you believe we value?" "Human order, control. The absolute certainty that your technological superiority guarantees victory." Thorne's voice grew quieter, more dangerous. "But what if I told you that we've already won this battle?" "Impossible. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships cannot outrun our interceptors. You have no reinforcements within a dozen systems." "You're absolutely right about all of that," Thorne agreed. "But you're making one crucial mistake. You're assuming this is a military engagement." The alien admiral's posture straightened, her warrior instincts sensing something amiss. "Explain." "In 37 minutes, every ship in your fleet will voluntarily stand down and await further orders. Not because we destroyed them, not because we outmaneuvered them, but because continuing this battle will cost the Veltar hegemony everything they've built over the past millennium." "Your words are meaningless. What could a handful of human vessels possibly threaten?" Thorne's smile widened. "Not what, Admiral? Who?" The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Even his own crew stared at their captain, wondering if the stress had finally broken him. But Thorne's next words would echo through galactic history. "We have your children." The silence that followed Thorne's declaration stretched like a taut wire across the void. Admiral Kixthara's compound eyes seemed to flicker, processing the impossible claim. Her mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation that her bridge crew recognized with growing unease. "You lie," she finally hissed. "Our offspring are secured in the sacred nursery worlds, protected by the most advanced defensive networks in the galaxy. No alien species has ever discovered their location." Sacred nursery worlds, Thorn repeated thoughtfully. Such a poetic name for the 17 planets where your species raises its young. Worlds that must remain absolutely pristine, maintained, at precisely 2.7 degrees Celsius above what you consider optimal adult temperatures. Worlds where the atmospheric composition cannot vary by more than 0.003% from the exact mixture needed for proper larval development. The color drained from Kixthara's exoskeleton, shifting from deep emerald to a sickly yellow-green. Around her, the bridge crew exchanged alarmed glances. This human knew details that were classified at the highest levels of their government. Impossible, she whispered. The location of our nursery worlds is known only to the Council of Matriarchs and the Guardian Fleet commanders. We've never shared this information with any alien species. You're absolutely correct, Thorn confirmed. You never shared it. We took it. On the human bridge, Commander Voss watched her captain with newfound respect. She'd served under Thorn for 3 years, but she'd never seen him deploy this level of psychological warfare. The man was orchestrating something far beyond a simple military confrontation. 3 years ago, Thorn continued, a small human exploration vessel suffered a catastrophic engine failure in the Kepler 442 system. Your patrol ships rescued the crew and transported them to the nearest Veltar medical facility for treatment. An act of mercy that your species performed because it aligned with your cultural values. The crew of the Wanderer, Kixthara breathed. They were returned to human space after full recovery. Standard protocol. Indeed. But what you didn't know was that our civilian explorers included Captain Lyra Nightfall, one of our most skilled intelligence operatives. During her 2-week stay in your medical facility, she did what humans do best, she observed. She learned. And she remembered. The alien admiral's antennae twitched violently. One patient in a medical facility could not possibly gain access to classified military intelligence. You're right again, but she didn't need to access your military networks. She simply watched your people, observed how your medical staff behaved when treating various crew members, noted which personnel received priority medical attention, tracked the subtle changes in behavior when certain sealed orders arrived. Thorn began pacing slowly across his bridge, his voice taking on an almost conversational tone. Humans have spent millennia reading each other's emotions, detecting lies, understanding the unspoken communication that occurs between individuals. We've survived as a species, not through superior technology, but through our ability to understand what others are thinking and feeling. Your point, human? My point is that Captain Nightfall noticed how your medical staff treated the crew of a transport vessel that arrived during her stay. The reverence in their voices when they spoke of the ship's cargo. The way they whispered about the precious ones being moved to the sanctuary. The careful monitoring of atmospheric conditions that seemed excessive even for your species standards. Kixthara's legs trembled slightly, causing her to grip the arm of her command chair. Her worst fears were being confirmed with each word. From there, it was simply a matter of patience and observation. We tracked unusual shipping patterns, monitored communication frequencies, analyzed the movement of your Guardian Fleet units. Over 3 years, we identified the 17 worlds where your species' future resides. Even if this fantasy were true, Kixthara said, her voice strained, you could never reach our nursery worlds. The Guardian Fleet maintains constant patrols, and our defensive networks would destroy any approaching vessel. You're absolutely right about that too, Thorn agreed. We could never reach your nursery worlds through conventional means, but we didn't need to reach them, Admiral. We're already there. The alien's eyes widened in horror. What do you mean? Tell me, Admiral. What's the one thing your species cannot tolerate? What would force even the mighty Veltar hegemony to capitulate to a handful of human vessels? Kixthara's voice was barely a whisper. The death of our children. Exactly. But we're not monsters, Admiral. We're not going to harm your offspring. We're going to save them. The confusion on Admiral Kixthera's face was palpable as she processed Thorn's unexpected declaration. Her tactical instincts screamed that this was some form of elaborate deception, yet the human's calm confidence suggested otherwise. Save them, she repeated, her voice cracking slightly. From what? From the Veltar hegemony's own weapons, Thorn replied, his tone carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Specifically, from the quantum resonance cascade that will be triggered when your fleet opens fire on our vessels. On the Veltar flagship, the bridge crew exchanged bewildered glances. Their admiral's compound eyes focused intently on the human captain, her analytical mind racing through possibilities. You speak in riddles. Our weapons cannot harm our own nursery worlds across such vast distances. The physics alone are absolutely correct under normal circumstances, Thorn interrupted. But these aren't normal circumstances. You see, Admiral, we've introduced a few modifications to your nursery world's defensive networks. Communications Officer Duluth stepped forward, his fingers dancing across his console. Admiral, we're receiving telemetry from Operation Shepherd's Gambit. All 17 sites are reporting successful integration. Thorn nodded approvingly. Thank you, Duluth. Admiral Kixthera, perhaps a demonstration would be helpful? The main screen split, showing both the alien admiral and a tactical display of the nursery world, designated as Veltar Prime 7. The planet appeared serene, its purple-tinted atmosphere swirling gently around continents dotted with the massive biodomes that housed millions of Veltar larvae. 18 months ago, Thorn began, we discovered that your species' defensive networks operate on a quantum frequency that perfectly matches the resonance signature of your larvae's neural development. It's an elegant system your children literally grow in harmony with the technology designed to protect them. This is known science, Kixthera said, though her voice carried a note of growing dread. The harmonic resonance ensures that our defensive systems will never accidentally harm our young. Precisely. But what your scientists never considered was what would happen if that same resonance frequency were artificially amplified and then suddenly disrupted. Thorn's eyes gleamed with the cold calculation of a master strategist. We've spent the past year introducing microscopic quantum resonators into your nursery world's atmospheric processors. The alien admiral's legs gave way, and she collapsed into her command chair. You're lying. Our security protocols would detect any foreign technology. Under normal circumstances, yes. But these resonators are constructed from materials harvested from your own worlds. Trace elements that your sensors recognize as naturally occurring. They're invisible to your detection systems because, chemically speaking, they belong there. Commander. Voss watched the exchange with growing admiration for her captain's strategy. This wasn't just military tactics. It was three-dimensional chess played across interstellar distances. The resonators are currently dormant, Thorn continued, but they're programmed to activate automatically if they detect the specific quantum signature generated by your fleet's weapons systems. The moment you open fire on our vessels, those resonators will begin amplifying the harmonic frequency of your larvae's neural development. And then, Kixthera whispered, then they'll abruptly cease functioning, creating a quantum resonance cascade that will disrupt the neural development of every larva within a 50-kilometer radius of each resonator. Your children won't die, Admiral Vale. Simply never achieve sentience. The bridge of the Veltar flagship erupted in chaos. Officers shouted reports, demanded confirmations, and pleaded for orders. But their admiral sat frozen, staring at the human captain, who had just described the extinction of her species' future. You're bluffing, she said finally. No species would commit such an atrocity. You're absolutely right, Thorn agreed. No species would. But we're not committing an atrocity, we're preventing one. You see, Admiral, we've also introduced a second set of resonators. The tactical display updated, showing a complex network of quantum signatures across all 17 nursery worlds. The pattern was intricate, beautiful, and utterly terrifying in its implications. These secondary resonators are designed to stabilize the quantum field around your larvae, protecting them from the cascade effect, but they require constant maintenance and recalibration. Maintenance that can only be performed by human technicians using our quantum manipulation technology. Impossible. Our scientists would detect such massive installations, would they? Thorne smiled. Tell me, Admiral, how many meteor impacts have your nursery worlds experienced in the past 6 months? Kixthera's antennae twitched as she accessed her fleet's databases. 17. No. 18 small impacts. All composed of standard metallic asteroids. Asteroids that were actually our delivery systems. Each meteor carried a full quantum stabilization array, designed to burrow deep into your nursery worlds, crest and establish a protective field around your larvae colonies. The alien admiral's voice was barely audible. You've turned our own protective instincts against us. We've given you a choice, Thorne corrected. Attack our fleet and risk the neural development of every larva in your nursery worlds, or accept our terms and ensure your species' survival. What terms? Kixthera asked, though she already knew the answer would reshape the balance of power in their galaxy. Stand down your fleet, withdraw to a safe distance, and agree to formal peace negotiations with the United Earth Coalition. And if we refuse? Thorne's expression grew cold. Then, in approximately 36 minutes, when your fleet inevitably opens fire, your species will face a choice between military victory and evolutionary suicide. The decision, Admiral, is yours. The silence that followed Thorne's ultimatum was deafening. Across the 3,000 vessels of the Veltar fleet, tactical officers waited for orders that their admiral seemed unable to give. On the human bridge, the crew watched their captain, with a mixture of awe and horror at the magnitude of what he'd orchestrated. You've constructed an impossible scenario, Admiral Kixthera finally said, her voice hollow. If we attack, we risk our children's future. If we surrender, we betray everything our species has built. Not everything, Thorne replied. You preserve the most important thing, your species' continuation. Your empire can be rebuilt, Admiral. Your children cannot. Sir? Commander Voss interjected quietly. We're receiving priority transmissions from the Veltar nursery worlds. Their Guardian fleet commanders are requesting immediate clarification of the situation. Kixthera's compound eyes fixed on the human captain. You've informed our Guardian fleet. We've informed everyone who matters, Thorne confirmed. The Council of Matriarchs, the Guardian fleet commanders, even the caretakers on your nursery worlds. They all know that the future of your species depends on the decisions made in the next 32 minutes. On the alien flagship, a junior officer approached the Admiral's chair with obvious reluctance. Admiral, we're receiving direct communications from the Matriarch Council. They're requesting immediate withdrawal of the fleet. Cowards, spat. Fleet Commander, Zixcala, Kixthera's second in command. We cannot allow a handful of alien vessels to dictate terms to the mighty Veltar hegemony. And what would you have us do? Kixthera asked, turning to face her subordinate. Risk the neural development of 3 billion larvae for the sake of military pride. We don't even know if their claims are true, Zixcala argued. This could be an elaborate deception designed to make us surrender without a fight. Thorne's voice cut through their debate. Commander Zixcala raises an excellent point. Would you like a demonstration? The tactical display updated, focusing on a small section of Veltaprim 12's northern continent. The image showed a biodome containing approximately 50,000 larvae in various stages of development. Test Site Alpha, Thorne announced. We've isolated a small section of one nursery world for demonstration purposes. The larvae in this facility are protected by a separate quantum field that we can manipulate independently. You wouldn't dare, Kixtera breathed. We wouldn't harm them, Thorn assured her, but we can demonstrate our ability to disrupt their neural development patterns. The effect would be temporary lasting, only a few hours before full recovery. Even temporary disruption could cause permanent damage, the alien admiral protested. It could, Thorn agreed, which is why we're not going to do it. Instead, we're going to show you something else. The display shifted to show a complex molecular diagram. What you're seeing is the quantum signature of a fully developed neural network. And this, the diagram updated, is the signature of a larva whose development has been disrupted by a resonance cascade. The difference was subtle, but unmistakable. The neural pathways that should have formed intricate patterns instead showed scattered, chaotic formations that could never achieve true consciousness. This is theoretical modeling, Zixkala objected. You cannot prove that your weapons would actually produce these effects. You're absolutely right, Thorn said. We can't prove it without actually triggering the cascade. But are you willing to bet 3 billion lives on the possibility that our science is wrong? Admiral Kixtera rose from her command chair, her movements deliberate and calculated. You've created a scenario where we cannot win. If we attack and you're telling the truth, we lose our future. If we surrender and you're lying, we lose our honor. Honor, Thorn repeated thoughtfully. Let me ask you something, Admiral. What is more honorable, fighting a battle that might doom your species, or ensuring that your children have a future worth living? The honor of the Veltar hegemony demands that we do not bow to threats from inferior species. Inferior, Thorn's eyebrows rose. Admiral, in the past 3 years, we've infiltrated your most secure facilities, mapped your most protected worlds, and positioned ourselves to hold your species' future hostage. If we're inferior, what does that make you? The barb hit its mark. Kixtera's exoskeleton flushed with anger, but her tactical mind recognized the truth in his words. The humans had outmaneuvered her at every turn. What guarantee do we have that you'll honor your agreement? She asked finally. What prevents you from making additional demands once we've surrendered? The same thing that prevents you from simply rebuilding your fleet and attacking us again, Thorn replied. Mutual assured destruction. Our quantum stabilizers can protect your larvae indefinitely, but they require constant maintenance. If anything happens to our technicians, your children's future remains at risk. And if we agree to your terms, what then? Then we begin the long process of building a relationship based on mutual respect rather than conquest. The galaxy is large enough for both our species to thrive, Admiral, but only if we choose cooperation over conflict. Admiral Kixtera looked around her bridge, seeing the faces of officers who had served with distinction in dozens of campaigns. They were warriors, bred for battle and trained for victory. But they were also parents, and the thought of sacrificing their children's future was unbearable. You ask us to surrender our fleet, she said slowly, to abandon our mission of expansion, to accept that humans are our equals rather than our subjects. I ask you to choose wisdom over pride, Thorn replied, to choose your species' future over your empire's ambitions. The alien admiral closed her eyes, her antennae trembling with the weight of the decision. When she opened them again, her voice was steady and clear. Very well, Captain Thorn, but know that this is not surrender, it is negotiation from a position of mutual vulnerability. We will stand down our fleet, but only if you guarantee the safety of our larvae during the transition period. Agreed, Thorn said immediately. Our technicians will maintain the quantum stabilizers until a permanent solution can be implemented, in the terms of our negotiation. Simple, formal recognition of human sovereignty over our current territories. Establishment of trade agreements that benefit both species. And most importantly, a mutual defense pact that ensures neither of us faces extinction alone. Admiral Kixtera nodded slowly. I will need to consult with the Council of Matriarchs, of course. You have 27 minutes. The 27 minutes that followed were perhaps the longest in galactic history. On the human vessels, crew members held their breath as they watched their captain maintain his composed facade, while the fate of two species hung in the balance. On the Veltar flagship, Admiral Kixtera engaged in heated debate with the Council of Matriarchs through encrypted quantum channels. The matriarchs are divided, her communications officer reported. 7 favor immediate withdrawal, 6 demand. We call the human bluff, and for abstain pending additional information. What additional information could there be? Commander Zixkala demanded. Either the humans are telling the truth about their capabilities, or they're not. It's not that simple, Kixthera replied, studying the tactical displays that showed the positioning of every vessel in both fleets. Even if we assume they're lying about the quantum resonators, they've still demonstrated intelligence-gathering capabilities that we severely underestimated. On the human bridge, Lieutenant Commander Voss approached her captain with a secure data pad. Sir, we're receiving status reports from all operational sites. The Guardian Fleet commanders are demanding proof of our claims. Expected, Thorn murmured. What's the response from the nursery world caretakers? They're requesting immediate verification of the quantum stabilizer's effectiveness. Some are threatening to evacuate the larvae to emergency shelters, which would accomplish exactly nothing, Thawne observed. The resonators would affect the entire planetary ecosystem. There's nowhere to run. Sir, permission to speak freely. Thorne nodded. Are we absolutely certain about the quantum cascade theory? The modeling is sound, but we've never tested it on actual Veltar neural tissue. Commander Voss, do you know what the most important quality of a successful bluff is? Confidence, sir. Commitment. The willingness to follow through if your opponent calls your bluff. Thorne's eyes remained fixed on the main display. The quantum resonators are real. The stabilizers are real. The cascade effect is real. The only question is whether Admiral Kixthera is willing to risk her species' future to test our resolve. And if she calls our bluff, then we discover whether humanity deserves to survive among the stars. Across the void, the debates continued. The Council of Matriarchs had been joined by representatives from the Guardian Fleet, scientific advisors, and even some of the nursery world caretakers. The weight of their species' future pressed down upon every participant. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we didn't know they possessed, argued Matriarch Velanara, the eldest of the council. Perhaps it's time to acknowledge that our assumptions about their primitive nature were incorrect. They're clever, admitted Matriarch Kixpera, but cleverness is not strength. If we surrender to 47 vessels, what message does that send to the other species we've conquered? That we prioritize our children's survival over our empire's expansion, Velanara replied sharply. Is that not the most fundamental duty of any parent? The humans could be eliminated later, suggested Guardian Fleet commanders. We could withdraw now, allow them to believe they've won, and then strike when they least expect it. With what? Kixthera interjected. If their quantum stabilizers are real, they hold our larvae hostage indefinitely. Any future attack would risk the same cascade effect. Only if we believe their claims, Zarthok countered. Are you willing to bet 3 billion lives on your skepticism? Velanara asked. The debate continued. But Admiral Kixthera found herself increasingly isolated in her growing certainty. The humans had outmaneuvered them completely, creating a scenario where victory was impossible and defeat was unthinkable. Admiral, her communications officer announced, we're receiving a private transmission from Captain Thorne. The main screen activated, showing the human captain in what appeared to be his private quarters. His formal uniform had been replaced by simple civilian clothes, and his expression carried none of the cold calculation he'd displayed during their earlier confrontation. Admiral Kixara, I thought you might appreciate a moment of honest conversation, away from the politics and posturing. What do you want, human? to tell you something that might make your decision easier. The quantum stabilizers protecting your larvae, they're not just protecting them from the cascade effect. The alien admiral's antennae twitched with interest. Explain. 3 months ago, our scientists detected a quantum decay pattern in your nursery world's defensive networks. The harmonic resonance that protects your children is gradually degrading, a natural consequence of the technology's age, and the interference from cosmic radiation. Impossible. Our systems are regularly maintained and upgraded. Your systems are working perfectly, Thorne confirmed, but they're fighting a losing battle against quantum entropy. According to our calculations, you have perhaps 18 months before the decay reaches critical levels. Kickstar's compound eyes widened. You're suggesting that our own defensive systems will eventually fail. I'm saying that your species was facing extinction long before we arrived. The difference is that our quantum stabilizers don't just protect your larvae from cascade effects, they also compensate for the quantum decay, effectively extending the viability of your nursery worlds indefinitely. Why tell me this? It weakens your negotiating position, because I want you to understand that this isn't about human superiority or Veltar submission. It's about two species finding a way to help each other survive in a universe that's trying to kill us all. The alien admiral was quiet for a long moment. How long have you known about the quantum decay? We discovered it during our initial infiltration of your systems. It's one of the reasons we chose this strategy. We knew that eventually, you would need our help regardless of any military confrontation. So this entire battle scenario, is theater, Thorne confirmed. Designed to give you a face-saving way to accept the help your species desperately needs. You could have simply offered assistance. Would you have accepted it? Would the mighty Veltar hegemony have admitted that their technology was failing and accepted aid from a species they considered primitive? Kickstara's mandibles clicked, in what might have been rueful laughter. No, we would have rejected your offer and searched for our own solution. A solution that doesn't exist, Thorne said gently. Admiral, I've given you a scenario where accepting our help looks like negotiating from a position of strength rather than admitting weakness. The choice is yours, and if I refuse, if I order my fleet to attack regardless of the consequences, then you'll discover that every word I've spoken about the quantum cascade is true, and your species will face extinction not because of human aggression, but because of Veltar pride. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kickstara alone with the weight of her decision. Around her, the bridge crew waited in silence, understanding that their admiral faced a choice that would echo through galactic history. Communications, she said finally. Open a channel to the entire fleet. Channel open, Admiral. This is Admiral Kickstara, to all vessels of the 8th Battle Fleet. As of this moment, we are standing down from combat operations and withdrawing to a safe distance. We will begin immediate negotiations with the human fleet regarding the terms of our mutual cooperation. Admiral, Commander Zixakala protested. This is surrender. No, Commander. This is survival. 6 months later, the orbital station Harmony hung in the neutral space between human and Veltar territories, its gleaming hull reflecting the light of the binary star system that had been chosen as the site for ongoing diplomatic relations. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human innovation merged with Veltar biotechnology to create something neither species could have achieved alone. Captain Varric Thorne stood in the station's observation deck, watching as the first joint human-Veltar exploration fleet prepared for departure. The sight of human and alien vessels flying in formation still seemed surreal, even after months of cooperation. "You're brooding again," observed Admiral Kickstara as she approached. The Veltar had adapted remarkably well to the station's mixed atmosphere, though she still wore a portable environmental unit that provided the specific gas mixture her species required. Reflecting, Thawne corrected, "There's a difference." "Is there?" "In my species, excessive contemplation is considered a sign of impending molting. Your species molts when stressed. Among other triggers, it's inconvenient during diplomatic negotiations. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the fleet preparations. The relationship between their species had evolved far beyond either leader's original expectations. What had begun as a desperate gambit to prevent interstellar war had become a partnership that was reshaping the galactic balance of power. The Council of Matriarchs has made a decision regarding the permanent installation of quantum stabilizers. Kixtera announced, "We're prepared to grant humans permanent settlement rights on 17 worlds adjacent to our nursery systems." "That's generous," Thorn replied, "but unnecessary. Our technicians can maintain the stabilizers remotely now that we've established the quantum relay network. The offer stands. Your species has proven that proximity to our most vulnerable populations poses no threat. Indeed, the nursery world caretakers report that human presence has actually accelerated larval development in several key areas. The children enjoy watching our technicians work," Thorn said with a slight smile. "Apparently, human problems methods provide excellent cognitive stimulation for developing Veltar minds, an unexpected benefit of our cooperation. The xenobiologists are fascinated by the neurological improvements they're observing." Speaking of cooperation, how are the other galactic powers responding to our new alliance? Kixtera's mandibles clicked in what Thorn had learned to recognize as amusement. The Zephyrian Commonwealth is requesting formal trade negotiations. The Nexus Collective has withdrawn their territorial expansion claims in the Outer Spiral. The Crystalline Hegemony has offered to mediate any future disputes between our species. In other words, they're terrified, appropriately cautious. The combination of human strategic thinking and Veltar military strength has created a partnership that none of them wish to confront. And the Guardian fleet, are they adapting to the new reality? Commander Zixkala has requested assignment to the Joint Exploration Program. She believes that working alongside human tacticians will improve her strategic capabilities. She's probably right. Your people are excellent warriors, but you tend to rely on overwhelming force rather than creative solutions. A limitation we're working to address. The military academies on our core worlds are now teaching human tactical theory, alongside traditional Veltar strategies. I hope you're not teaching them everything, Thorn said with mock concern. Some secrets should remain secret, indeed, though I suspect your species has many more surprises in store for us. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. That day 6 months ago, when you made the decision to stand down your fleet, what was the deciding factor? Kixtera considered the question carefully. You gave me a choice between pride and survival. As a military commander, I was trained to value honor above all else. But as a parent, I knew that honor meant nothing if my children had no future. And now I realize that true honor comes from making decisions that benefit future generations, not from adherence to outdated concepts of military glory. The quantum decay in your nursery world's defensive systems our scientists have been analyzing. The problem, we believe we can not only compensate for it, but actually improve the overall efficiency of your protective networks. At what cost? Partnership, long-term cooperation, the sharing of scientific knowledge and cultural understanding. Terms we can accept, Kixtera agreed, though I suspect this partnership will lead to changes that neither of our species can fully anticipate. Change is inevitable, Thorn replied. The question is whether we guide it or let it sweep us away. They were interrupted by the arrival of Commander Voss and a young Veltar officer whose exoskeleton bore the bright green markings of the science caste. Sir, Admiral Voss reported, the Joint Exploration Fleet is ready for departure. They're requesting final authorization from both commanding officers. Authorized, Thorn and Kixtera said simultaneously, then looked at each other with mutual amusement. Sir, the Veltar officer added, we've received communication from the Council of Matriarchs. They're formally requesting that both you and Admiral Kixtera attend the ceremony of new bonds next month. The what now? Thorn asked. A ritual acknowledging the creation of permanent alliances between species, Kixtera explained. It's considered one of the highest honors in Veltar culture. I'm honored by the invitation. There's more, the young officer continued. The Council wishes to grant you the title of Protector of the Young, a designation that has never been given to a non-Veltar individual. That's ... double quotes. Thorn paused, clearly moved by the gesture. That's an extraordinary honor. It acknowledges what you've done for our species, Kixtera said softly. You could have used your knowledge to destroy us. Instead, you chose to save us. We saved each other, Thorn replied. Your species' situation forced us to become better than we were, to think beyond simple military victory and consider the long-term consequences of our actions. And what have we learned from this experience? That the universe is vast enough for multiple species to thrive, but only if we're willing to look beyond our own immediate interests. As they watched the joint fleet depart for the unexplored regions of the galaxy, both leaders reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a potential extinction event had become the foundation for a new era of interstellar cooperation. Captain, Kixtera said finally, I have one last question. Yes, the quantum resonators you placed in our nursery worlds, they were never actually weapons, were they? Thorn's smile was enigmatic. What do you think? I think that you recognized our species' quantum decay problem long before we did. I think you developed the stabilizers as a solution, not a threat. And I think you created an elaborate scenario that would allow us to accept your help without losing face. Those are interesting theories. Are they correct? Does it matter? The result is the same two species working together instead of destroying each other. It matters to me. Thorn was quiet for a long moment. The resonators were real. The cascade effect was real. The threat to your larvae was absolutely genuine. But you're also right about our motivations. We didn't create the problem, we simply found a way to solve it that would benefit both our species. So you were simultaneously threatening and protecting our children. We were showing you that you had a choice. Continue down the path of conquest and risk everything, or accept partnership and secure your future. And if we had chosen conquest, then the cascade would have occurred exactly as I described. We would have lost our fleet. Your species would have faced extinction, and the galaxy would have been diminished by the loss of both civilizations. A strategy that required you to be willing to sacrifice everything for your principles. Not sacrifice, invest. We believed that demonstrating our commitment to protecting your children would prove our worthiness as partners rather than subjects. You were right. The reports from our nursery worlds indicate that larval development has improved significantly since the installation of your quantum stabilizers. Our children are growing stronger, more intelligent, and more curious about the universe around them. They're the future of both our species now. The partnerships we're building, the technologies we're sharing, the cultures of it will be inherited by the next generation. A generation that will grow up knowing that cooperation achieved what conquest could not. That's the real victory, Thorn said. Not the surrender of your fleet, but the creation of something new. Something that neither species could have achieved alone. As the last of the joint exploration fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying crews from both species toward unknown worlds and undiscovered possibilities, the two leaders stood in contemplative silence. The gambit that had brought them together had ended, but the partnership it had created would endure for generations to come. Admiral Thawne said finally, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful alliance. Indeed, Captain, our children will inherit a galaxy where strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation, where wisdom is valued over weapons, and where the future belongs to those who choose to build rather than destroy. The observation deck fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the station's systems. Outside, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance. indifferent to the small dramas played out by the civilizations that had learned to call the void their home. But within the station, and spreading outward through the networks of communication and trade that connected 1,000 worlds, something new was being born. It was not the dominance of one species over another, nor the subjugation of the weak by the strong. It was the recognition that survival in an hostile universe required not just strength, but wisdom. Not just courage, but compassion. Not just the will to fight, but the wisdom to know when not to fight. The strategy that had made a galactic fleet. Surrender had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization, one built not on conquest, but on cooperation. And in the nursery worlds of the Veltar, protected by human technology, and nurtured by the hope of a shared future, the children of both species would grow up knowing that the greatest victories were not won through war, but through the courage to choose peace when peace seemed impossible. The gambit was complete. The future had begun. The end.